Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sarah Fensky. Today, we remember former St. Louis Police Captain David Dorn. He served 38 years with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and also served as chief of police for Moline Acres. Dorn was shot and killed on June 2nd. He was responding to an alarm at the pawn shop where he moonlit as a security guard. His death shocked those who knew him here in St. Louis and those who didn't across the country. Among the words that people who knew him often use when they talk about Dorn is integrity. St. Louis County Councilman Tim Fitch is a 31-year police veteran and former police chief for St. Louis County. He worked closely with Dorn beginning in the 1980s when they each ran a Law Enforcement Explorer program, which is aimed at youth interested in careers in law enforcement.
He was running it in the city of St. Louis, and I was running it in St. Louis County. So we had many interactions back then within that program. And one of the things I noticed about David back then was how he wanted to help disadvantaged youth in his community, and particularly the areas that he worked in and lived in, and wanted to mentor them to become law enforcement officers like he dedicated his life to. So that always impressed me that he was wanting to do that. And then I really dealt with him a lot after that program when he became the police chief in Moline Acres. He was the police chief in Moline Acres at the same time, almost identical number of years that I was the police chief in St. Louis County. So I dealt with David professionally and on a friendship basis during that entire time.
Councilman Fitch says one of Dorn's most striking qualities was his steadfastness in doing his job the best he could, regardless of the financial limitations of his employers.
Even though he was working as a police chief in an impoverished community that had very limited funds, he didn't succumb to what you may see happen in some of those communities where they just give up, throw up their hands. We don't have the equipment, we don't have the funds, we don't have the personnel to do what we need to do. Is David learned how to work with what he had. And one of the things that really impressed me about him is the work had to be with integrity, and it had to be with dedication to the profession. He never, ever gave up on that integrity.
And Dorn didn't just have a good relationship with the people he served. He also earned respect from his colleagues.
You're not going to find a police person to a T that's going to say anything negative about how they were treated when they worked for Captain Dorn in the city and when they worked for Chief Dorn in Moline Acres. Everybody I've talked to since this happened, the first thing they would always say is, what a great guy, what a loss, what a funny guy, what a humorous guy. What a guy with integrity. I mean, I just, and I realize it's easy for us after a person's gone to say all these nice things about them. But with David Dorn, it comes easy. It comes easy to talk about the good things that he did and the dedication he had to his profession.
But Dorn wasn't always serious, Councilman Fitch says. He fondly recalls their conversations.
Every time I talk to him, I guarantee you, every time I talk to him, I ended up laughing on that phone call with him or that visit with him face to face, because there would be something that he told me that happened, and just the way that David had to describe incidents, it was just very, very, very funny. That's just the kind of guy he was, and he had a way with words. He knew some profanity and it didn't bother him to use it. So he was a very interesting guy and very funny guy, and he's definitely going to be missed by a lot of people.
Building and keeping community trust was among Dorn's priorities. Through that, he helped change the course of some people's lives. That includes the Reverend Richard Jackson of the Manasseh Ministry in North St. Louis County. His relationship with Dorn goes back to when Jackson was a 17-year-old shoplifter. Dorn was the police officer who caught him and also the one who talked to him.
I just liked the way he conducted himself. He wasn't a bully. He wasn't pushy. If he saw me out in the street, he didn't say, he didn't confront me like I'm shoplifting in the store. He just say, he may nod his head. He had very few words. If he did talk to me during those times that I was shoplifting and trying to take care of my daughter, if I saw him in the store, I would leave. I left because I respected him, not because he's never arrested me. He stopped me but he's never caught me stealing. I respected him because of the fact that he was the kind of person that demanded respect. And what I didn't want him to do, it's foolish of me to think this way, but what I didn't want him to do is actually think that every time he saw me in the store, I was shoplifting. Because a lot of times I wouldn't be. I'd be setting up, but I wouldn't be shoplifting. And then sometimes I'd be in the store and I'd be buying things. So he was a man that respected people where they were. He came from the hood and a tremendous man. He had a man of integrity, a man that loved God, a man that loved his family, a man that believed in helping people, but he also believed that if he needed to work 3 jobs to take care of his family, that's what he would do.
The Reverend Jackson says Dorn set an example of how police officers can better their relationship with the communities they serve.
If you had more officers like him who really cared about the people in the community, understood that they're going to do their job, but at the same time could be able to have the spirit to differentiate, you know what, he just out here tripping. He ain't like he robbed nobody, burglarized nobody. He ain't selling dope. He ain't beating up women. I ain't going to get him, let somebody else get him. That'd be sometimes his mindset. But he still cared about the people. That's what I remember about him. He was a man, and I respect him. And I just wanted him to always know, whenever he saw me, whenever I saw him, hey, man, I don't live like that. And that was it.
Danny Barnett Bay is a North St. Louis resident who grew up in the same area as Dorn. Here's how he describes Dorn and the way others in the community perceived him.
He had a beautiful personality. He always was laughing and talking stuff. He liked to jug at people, you know, in a joking manner and stuff like that, make you laugh. Yeah, he was a happy-go-lucky guy. He wasn't no corrupted police. He was a good police. He didn't really bother nobody. He done his job like anybody else with a job. You got to do what you instructed to do. You know, he didn't. I never seen him put his hands on nobody. You know what I'm saying? Roughing them up or none of that. I never seen him do none. I seen he worked in the district where I lived. There, I moved from Spring and L down to Sarah Street to Sarah and Cook, 4114 Cook. And he patrolled the 8th district. That was the district I lived in. When I lived where we growed up at, that was the 9th district. So he was a good officer. He wasn't no time. All he did was done his job. If he arrested someone and they went to the penitentiary because they was good for what they done, he never framed nobody. That I know of, never. He was strictly a good police officer. Everybody respect David.
Hundreds of people gathered on June 10th at the St. Louis Friendly Temple on Martin Luther King Drive for David Dorn's funeral. He is survived by his wife, adult children, and grandchildren. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
St. Louis Public Radio's The Gateway gives you the day's news first thing every weekday morning. From the ever-evolving relationship between St. Louis City and County to developments in the Missouri and Illinois state capitals and reports from our correspondents in Rolla and the Metro East. We put it all in a roughly 10-minute package with clarity and context. Download The Gateway wherever you get podcasts.